Everything we do is going to be about winning. Okay, we're going to learn to do things the right way, and that's the only way we're going to do them. Because if it doesn't help us, we're not doing it, man. That's just as simple as it gets. Win the Super Bowl.
That's good.
I mean it, too. You know, one of the things that the only reason you become a head coach in this league, in my opinion, is to win. That's it. That's the bottom line. If you do it for any other reason, you're wrong.
Hey football fans, welcome to the Washington Command Center. Okay, so after snapping a 4-game losing streak by the skin of our teeth, I want to celebrate by looking ahead to the draft, having a bit of fun, and talking about some of the prospects I think could elevate this team in this new era of Washington football, an era where this proud franchise can once again command respect. What better way to kick off this new era than subscribing here to the first, the real, the OG Washington Command Center, so you can find your way back to some of the most opinionated and ice-cold calculated takes on all things Washington Commanders. And while you're at it, ring that bell, hit that like button. It's free to do, and it means a lot. With Ron looking super stressed out recently, I want to bring up what he said was his biggest takeaway from his downfall in Carolina. He said their biggest mistake was letting his roster get too old. Got too old to the point where they had, money tied up in ways that didn't let them do any consequential upgrades to their team through free agency. Now, when Ron came here, we already had a lot of young players on this team, and we've done pretty well at adding starter quality players through the draft in the 3 years he's been here. But even with Ron's self-awareness about his Panther roster, we ended up with a lot of older veteran players here, not playing up to their contracts or just not staying healthy. And I know you need veteran leadership on the field, but I think with the way Ron's built this culture, a lot of our young players now heading into their 4th and 5th season, in their prime in most of their cases, those guys are the veteran leadership we need. And all of the older veterans, I really think Leno and Lucas are the only ones worth their contract. So I think another big influx of youth is needed in this draft. We really got to come up with a draft similar to this year's draft. I think we should be trading back. I hope we get something out of William Jackson III, who wants out of town, fine, show him the door, get something for him. And I think we got to trade back, get some extra picks, and land some players ready to step in right away and upgrade us in key places. As bad as this season's looking, luckily, I think we're going to end up with a high enough pick to be able to trade it back for significant picks to fill out some things. And the way it stands now, we're sitting around 5th overall. And I don't think there's a guy at the top of the draft, not one guy, that's going to make the difference we need. I think a trade back is the way to go. And I know criticism will come flying in from everywhere if this happens, but I don't think quarterback is the problem here either. And I know I'll get flamed for that, but I don't think any quarterback is going to be able to succeed in this current situation. And I personally think Carson Wentz has shown me enough that I think he can be the guy if we fix the situation. If not, I am supremely confident in Sam Howell that I still like more than any of the quarterbacks in this draft too. So, even if that falters, worst comes to worst, we'll be in line to grab the hometown boy, Caleb Williams, in 2024 with a much more complete team around him. So, that said, hopefully, if we finish this bad, we'll have rested Wentz up, or his injury will have kept him out long enough to save our second round pick. That should be a high one. And in this time, hopefully, we'll have gotten Sam Howell ready to step up at least into the backup role with Heineke's contract ending. So, if we hang on to that second, the fact that we have a third round comp coming our way means we won't miss giving, that third round pick to the Colts. But since the PFMN simulator that I'm using doesn't have the comp picks yet, I'll have to make some extra moves here to pick that up. But for now, I'll just say, starting out at 5th, I'm going to let the Detroit Lions take the risk on the next OSU quarterback. Since Bryce Young's already gone off the board in this draft, not big on going after another Ohio State quarterback. I just won't do it. I'm sorry. Say all the crap you will about, not scouting the helmet. I'm going to let the Lions take that risk and pay us handsomely while only moving us back to 8th overall. We collect the 8th pick, the 21st, and their 39th in the second round, and a future third. Man, we really fleeced them. So, there's going to be a few moves throughout this draft where I pick up some more picks, but this is the only one I really want to talk about because it's the most impactful. So, there it was. The Lions gave us 2 firsts and a second and a future third. So, back at 8. Now, I spoke against going this high for this position just in this past draft. Because of the scheme and the way Ron runs the secondary, I think he's shown that, we can get solid performance from role players later in the draft. But this guy's versatility is going to let him wear many hats in this defense and make the kind of impact a basic cornerback just couldn't. So at 8th overall, I'm going with my favorite player in the draft, Antonio Johnson. 6'3", 200-pound cornerback, defensive back from Texas A&M. Now, linebacker has always been my favorite position, but as the NFL evolves more to, nickel and dime usage, I've started to fall in love with another position and player type. These hybrid nickel players that can shut down the shiftiest slot receivers while also being able to explode into the backfield and smother the run game. It's just, I fell in love last year with Jalen Petrie, who's balling out for the Texans this season, if you excuse him for the missed tackles. But I'm just loving this kind of slot player that also shuts down the run. Like, it's basically a linebacker in the star position. But I'm loving these guys, and this guy's a lot like Petrie, except he has the size and athleticism that Petrie was lacking. I mean, he's 6'3", 200 pounds, and he's a freaky athlete. We'll all have to wait for the testing with all of these guys to be sure. But this guy definitely looks the part on the field, holding it down, outside at cornerback. He could be a very imposing young tandem with Ben St. Juste. We have these 2 6'3" cornerbacks, on the outside, shutting it down. But where he stands out to me is his ability to slide in to that nickel and shut down everybody from the slot. He's everything I hope Kyle Hamilton could be and more, since he has the chops to play outside cornerback too. This guy would take our secondary that has been a lot of good or our defense that's been a lot of good pieces that aren't, fitting together and getting the job done. I think he could be the guy that ties that all together in a way that could give us a dynamic secondary, which is what we've been missing to finally get this defense above our already lofty expectations. You put this guy out there with Ben St. Juste, Cam Curl, Derek Forrest, and it's looking like a serious group. Now, if we miss on him, we still got to beef up this secondary. And my next favorite DB, a little less versatile than Johnson, but probably the best pure outside cornerback in the draft, in my opinion, would be Syracuse's Garrett Williams. So that would be the next answer to that. But after that, back to pick 21. Now, if we can't manage to get Daron Payne to extend, we could actually look at this guy's teammate instead and make our interior defensive line completely homegrown by joining Virginia boy John Allen with Maryland man monster Brian Breesy, who, just like Allen, could end up dropping to this range over injury concerns. But I'd much prefer we spend big in our other defensive weak spot, back at 21 with Trenton Simpson, 6'3", 240-pound linebacker from Clemson. Pretty sure there will be another dust up in the DMV over this one, but I think it would massively help this defense, turning a weakness into a strength with, how Jamin's been progressing. And like I've been saying over the past few years, this puts Holcomb where he's best suited, moving him from an average starter at best to a high-end rotational guy, that can stay fresh and be explosive when he's sprinkled in. I know some people, would be weary of another first-round linebacker, let alone, another guy from Clemson after Isaiah Simmons hasn't transitioned so well. But Jamin's second-year jump has given me faith back in our coaches, being former linebackers, and their ability to develop linebackers. Because, I thought Jamin was a third-round kind of guy a few years away, if ever, and pretty raw. Now, just in his second year, he's looking a lot better. Simpson doesn't come with the same worries, though. He's a clear first-round linebacker, in my opinion. And I think he looks better than Devin Lloyd from this draft, who's made a seamless transition for the Jags. And I think he's a very similar player to Devin Lloyd from a versatility standpoint. But I think he will test out significantly better athletically. He's got all the mental stuff down perfectly, and you could just imagine he's a more athletic, younger Devin Lloyd, or even as Nakobe Dean in a body close to Jamin's. Either way, I think, either of those paints a pretty good picture of Simpson's potential, and I just think he's the kind of player that would give us a massive boost to the linebacker group, and by extension, this whole defense. So Trenton Simpson should definitely be an early target. I know trading back just to add 2 more players to a defense already brimming with first rounders is going to catch some flack. No quarterback, you're saying. You're probably already in the comments or clicked off. But we got to stay the course. No sunk cost fallacy here. These couple more guys could elevate the defense to something near impossible to move the ball on. We see how well our defense is playing in spite of the glaring holes we have. So I think plugging those holes would be massive. Besides, if we suck bad enough to be picking this high, we need as many upgrades as possible. Now, let's move on to that high second rounder we got to keep from resting Carson Wentz for 3 or 4 weeks, or because of his broken finger, keeping him out. Whatever. We go to that high second round pick now, and we are going to get Wentz some damn help in a big way. Like I said, hopefully keeping our high second rounder by Wentz going out, we ended up also with Detroit's high second rounder as well. So I'll trade that back to the end of the second, picking up a third and a fourth. So with our high second round pick, for as much as I believe in the development of Sadiq Charles and Chris Paul, I think we can get Cosmi back on track with some stability at guard. I don't think we need to move Cosmi to guard because his athleticism is just way too valuable at offensive tackle. He just needs stability next to him at guard. So we're going to beef up that guard position in a big way with former 3-star recruit Andrew Voorhees. He's 6'6", 320 pounds, offensive guard from USC. The dude could have came out last year. And surprisingly, he still hasn't improved his stock much. He's being projected mid-second round or later, which I think is crazy. That's why we got to have this early second round pick so we can get him. And it would be great for us. This dude might not have like the tip-top elite, game-changing, prime sheriff, Quentin Nelson potential. But this guy is plug and play, fresh out the gate, lunch pail in his hand, going to give us that level right below elite, right from the start. That level that's better than 95% of offensive guards in the NFL. He's going to give that to you from day one. The dude's grading above 90s everywhere, according to PFF. Pass pro, run blocking, overall grade, just straight 90s grades. He's so dependable and consistent. People call him boring, which is the best thing your guard can be. You don't even have to worry about him. You just know he's over there, nothing to see here, blocking up his guy. Now, I love a guy that can just bury other guys, and Voorhees can do that too. But it's way more important that he's just as steady as can be, and that's what he is. And he's the kind of guy that provide an instant boost to this offense, giving Wentz plenty of time to drop back and throw those deep dimes down the field for touchdowns. So, very important pick here, Andrew Voorhees. After him, we aren't done with the offensive line by far. Next up, with that trade back pick from Detroit, we ended up later on in the round staying in the second to make sure we land this guy. Of course, in real life, we, need to feel the temperature of the league by draft time. But as it stands, I think we'd be safe to get him here, especially for the fact that he'll be 24 by the time he takes his first snap in the NFL. But that just helps him be ready to plug and play too. And I know we shouldn't have to go here, but back-to-back seasons losing, our high-level center for the majority of the games and having an out in his contract this season with back-to-back serious injuries right before he turns 30, things probably aren't getting back to that elite level we had, last season. And this might be the move to make if we can trade Chase Roullier, even with the injuries. I believe he should net at least a fourth. Whatever he brings, we got to get a quality center we can depend on. Whether Chase goes or not, we got to get a guy. And I think there's a perfect guy in this draft to replace him. And that's John Michael Schmidt, 6'4", 320-pound center from Minnesota. I think he's that dude. He's a big, beefy boy for a center nowadays. And with us still doing a considerable amount of gap blocking, he fits very well. And that's why I think he'll still be available later in the second round. With most teams looking for smaller, more mobile zone blocking centers, that way, we can end up with the top graded center in all of college football through the first 8 weeks. People just aren't playing to his best ability, where we still are. He's graded a 91.8 through 8 weeks, which is considerably ahead of every center. And like I said, he's a big boy for the position. And he has tremendous upside as a pass protector. And he has the meat and power to strong arm gaps and open up holes in the run game. Depending on how Charles and Chris Paul look at offensive guard, Schmidt could end up jumping to our top O-line target. Like I said, depending on how the offensive guard spot ends up looking by the end of the year. Either way, John Michael Schmidt is must-have. Fits what we do. He's amazing at the position. And something we need badly. Chase Roullier can't stay healthy. It was nice to have a dependable center when we had one, but it's time to replace him. After the attention to the offensive line, we switch back to our secondary. And in my opinion, grab Kendall Fuller's replacement. Now, I believe we can save about $8 million from parting ways with Kendall Fuller. And I actually have a lot of faith in the potential of our young cornerbacks. Ben St. Juste taking over William Jackson III looks great. And we had some waiver wire steals. Rashad Walgoose is, looking better with every week that goes by here. And one of my favorite cornerbacks from this past draft, local talent, super toolsy Tariq Castro Fields, who I think could make a difference when he finds his way into the rotation. But still, William Jackson III asking for a trade's a blessing. Hopefully move on from him, pick up a pick. And he just hasn't fit the defense at all, and it's time to cut ties, save a few million. But letting go of 2 veteran cornerbacks might sound crazy to some, especially with Fuller having a very good season just last year. But I think a lot more of you should be cheering, replacing these guys. So here we can grab another guy that's really only going to be available at this point in the draft because of, injuries taking him out of that feature spot in the Bama defense. But we got to see him fresh out the gate as a freshman, ball out in that star role that Brian Branch is holding down now. And if you don't know, I'm talking about Malachi Moore, 6 foot, 195 pounds, cornerback from Alabama. I think he could be an awesome cornerback too, or even put him down in that star role, put him in the slot. And he has the skills to perfectly replace Kendall Fuller as a guy that can hold it down outside while also being able to come inside and shine in the slot. Pairing him with Antonio Johnson from round one, Cam Curl, Ben St. Juste that, we saw work out of the nickel this year, Derek Forrest, who's showing his ability to play all around, and eventually, hopefully, Percy Butler with his versatility, we could definitely end up with that truly fluid, positionless secondary I was begging for last draft. When I was hoping for a bigger trade back in the first so that we'd be in position to land Petrie and Daxton Hill, with this draft, we could actually get an upgrade, with Johnson having that superior size and athleticism, and Moore being very close to that Petrie Hill type of player. So if Moore ends up going earlier or sticking around another year there, there'll be other cornerbacks in this range that we could take, just not as exciting. Maybe Joey Porter Jr. would be another name for here, or Percy Butler's former teammate, Mekhi Gardner. Those are two other cornerbacks in this spot, but really hoping for Malachi Moore there. After that, we're going to move back to the offensive line and grab another guy I'm super excited about. And it's pure insanity with the importance of pass pro in the NFL that this guy is projected to the 4th round. And that guy is Blake Freeland, 6'7", 305-pound offensive tackle from BYU. One of the best offensive tackles in college football in pass protection, with 91.9 pass protection grades. And he's still respectable, with a 72.2 run blocking grade there. That's still respectable. And it brings his overall grade to a very solid 78.8. But his run blocking will certainly improve with just a little refinement and an NFL weight room, especially with the fact that this guy moves like a giant tight end. Like, he moves in a young Lane Johnson kind of way. This is the perfect guy to learn behind Leno to eventually take over. And if Cosme can get back on track, that puts us in an awesome position with an offensive line that can play at a high level all the way across. We'd be set up from here to grow for years to come. Freeland just has 15-year cornerstone left tackle written all over him. Blake Freeland, my favorite tackle in the draft. After that, we take our first shot at making a big improvement to our kick return game. But this time, we can't focus on a pure kick return or punt return guy, which is great because this guy is a legit offensive weapon that I've been waiting for the last 2 years. This guy is not only will give us a return game spark, but he also gives us a legitimate security blanket in case Curtis Samuels or J.D. McKissick gets injured. And that guy is Anaya Smith, 5'10", 190 pounds, also from Texas A&M. He's a legit offensive weapon and the type of gadget guy that's super important to our offense. I really don't need to say much here. I've been hoping for him the past 2 seasons. I've mentioned him a lot before. And like I said, he's an upgrade in the return game, plus insurance at the gadget offensive weapon position, out wide, in the slot, or out of the backfield. He would be a welcome addition to an offense already bursting with talent. After him, we got to deal with another departure here. we look great at wide receiver depth, especially with Diami finally having a breakout, since we have a quarterback that fits his play style. But Cam Sims just isn't making much of a difference. And yes, he has his moments, but I don't think we should bring Sims back. But I think we still need size at wide receiver. He's kind of the only person that has that. So let's look to the draft and bring in another guy that I won it last year, a guy I talked about last season, but he had his season cut short by injury and decided to go back for another year, and that's Dante Demas, 6'3", 200-pound wide receiver from Maryland. Local player, local school. He's trying to get his pre-injury speed back up, but this guy offers great size and length at the position, and if he can get his pre-injury self back, this is a guy with some serious traits and talent, and a local guy that will be making sure he doesn't let his mom down every week. He also fits that Terry Jahan mold with a work ethic and attitude that you love to have on the team. This guy's just all around the kind of guy you want on the team, and he's got that size that we are kind of lacking at the wide receiver position. After that, we got another hole to plug with Heineke's contract ending. I think it's time we let him pursue a possible starting job somewhere. If he can find one, let's just let him go and, cut some cap corners where we can. And I think we could grab a guy that could be a great future backup for Hal, or possibly even competition for him, With the quarterback class looking so deep, we should take advantage by grabbing this year's forgotten man at quarterback. He's a mobile quarterback that's tough enough to add to the run game without fear of injury, game in and game out, just like Hal, and one that has been one of, if not the most efficient passers in college football in the last 3 seasons as a starter. And that's Grayson McCall, 6'3", 216 pounds, from Coastal Carolina. I love this guy. Sam Howell got the Drew Brees comps because of his size, but McCall has a more similar play style. He's just in like a crazy double option offense, so he doesn't get the kind of volume passing Brees did, but his efficiency, accuracy, and ability to escape pressure and complete passes in the face of it makes me a huge fan. He's like Heineke's final form. Plus, he has the size Taylor doesn't. He's definitely going to, be taking a big step from Coastal Carolina's offense to the NFL, but he fits perfectly with what Scott ran for Heineke last year. Plus, he's the third quarterback and would have plenty of time to develop while, competing and pushing Sam Howell forward. So I think Grayson McCall, if he makes it to this point in the draft, back at the 120 spot, is a no-brainer. Like, this is like taking Sam Howell this year. We got to take Grayson McCall to possibly be his future backup. After that, we got to go back to the linebacker well. Double dipping like I've recommended for the last few years. And we get lucky with another falling talent here. At 137, Troy Brown. 6'1", 220-pound linebacker from Ole Miss. Change of direction, motor, instinct, explosion, and reaction time all through the roof. Now, stepping up in competition at Ole Miss has seen him drop down boards a bit from when he was in Western Michigan, but with adding a freak like Simpson to a constantly improving Jamin as a pair of linebackers that can stand up to blockers, having a guy like Brown who knows where the play is going and can get there and clean everything up would be the perfect way to round out that group. Turning a weakness into a strength. Dog, baller, gamer. That's the kind of player Troy is. And he's one that gives, the team a boost because the quality that he would add to the depth. He might not be a starter right away. With 2 first-rounders up there, you wouldn't expect him to be. But this is a guy that'll be that third man in and just really help put that group over the top. Then back to our last pick. I put more resources into what would hopefully be a drastically improved return game here with another return ace. And this is one in kind of a different package. At 174, I take Malik Knowles, 6'3", 200 pounds, wide receiver from Kansas State. Now, he's a former 3-star recruit. You normally don't see 6'3" returners, but Knowles is a beast. In a class with quite a few good return men, that's the only reason this guy ends up down here where we can land him this late. And, 6'3" return ace and a pretty good gadget guy to boot. So he could be worked into the offense as well to give us, like I mentioned before with Demas, with Cam Sims contract ending, this is another guy with some size to add to the wide receiver room. And that's a pretty good 2 birds with 1 stone kind of upgrade there, especially to end this draft. Y'all check out Malik Knowles from Kansas State. This dude, it's just crazy to see a 6'3", 200-pound guy with the kind of hips and jukes like this guy would be awesome to add to our return game and our offense. Now, I've also ran the simulator in more realistic ways that I trade back without landing that extra first and instead get extra seconds and thirds. So where we might not get Trenton Simpson, hey, there's guys like Jack Campbell in Iowa, another linebacker, 2nd, 3rd round that could be good. There's plenty of cornerbacks out there, like even later in the draft, I think somebody like local wide receiver turned cornerback, ball hawk, former 3-star recruit, Cam Hart could be basically, Trayvon Diggs without the hype. So there's a corner we could look at later, Cam Hart. And just a little prediction here for a possible UDFA edition. Another more traditional boost to the kick return. And more importantly, punt return team. Nico Remigo from Fresno State. This guy's a beast with 25.1 kick return average, a 13.9 punt return average. But this season so far, he has a 40.3 punt return average with 1 touchdown from punt returns and 1 touchdown from kick returns. So that's somebody I think might slide off the board being from, Fresno State that we could look at then. But this is all just for fun and, at this time. And I think these are definitely some of the positions we need to address this offseason. In my opinion, these are some of the best players to address them with. But there's a ton of talent in this coming draft, especially secondary players, where we definitely need a boost. But, yeah. I know we're going to find the kind of players to boost this team in this new era of Washington football, an era where this proud franchise can once again command respect. As always, no better way to kick off this new era than subscribing here to the Washington Command Center, so you can find your way back to some of the most opinionated and ice-cold calculated takes on all things Washington Commanders. Hit that like button, ring that bell, and if you stayed this long, I love y'all. Peace.